to shu chu pe no jo ne gore nyang por do we gun chu gi dogs in la dre ten du dro jig dun in is in gore we nom tog du log Sagyur exin la matro la jon eram pa wo jam so jro la jon pet o ma chig ma so whatever ma chig ma so whatever home chig ma so whatever kapo om gijin jelo marpo wai jin jelo non pom gijin jelo go son tugi jin chen po ma yong shen ko pan to bar show. This is Darren Littlejohn. You're listening to episode 52 of the 12-Step Buddhist Podcast, practicing fearlessly, and continuing with practices of a Bodhisattva, number 10. There's a free giveaway of the new release of the Compassionate Recovery audiobook. Details at the end. I, the yogin, are practicing fearlessly to realize the unity of samsara nirvana, dancing on the gods' demons of self-clinging. May dualistic samsaric thoughts be reduced to dust. Root lineage of the Vijayadharas, come to the dance. Yidams and oceans of Harukas, come to the dance. Host of Dakinis from all the sacred places, come to the dance. Empower me to make this practice a success. So practice number 10 in the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva. From beginningless time, your mothers have cherished you. If they now suffer, what good is your own happiness? Therefore, in order to liberate limitless sentient beings, giving rise to bodhicitta is the practice of a bodhisattva. So the root message or the root principle is giving rise to bodhicitta, which, as we've discussed many times, is the Sanskrit term for both two kinds of compassion, relative compassion and absolute or supreme compassion. And we can, in the 12-step Buddhists, we have practices on this. And this is pretty well distributed in the world now. There's a lot of this going on even in recovery, different types of recovery meetings and so forth. But the idea that we can begin, you can really start where you are. Doesn't matter where you are, so there's no excuse to aspire to, even to be willing to feel compassion for anybody if you're that hardened, So we understand all of these things, and this is just another example. And in the Tibetan system, it's a little bit different to try to, it's very well established and taken, that karma and endless rebirths is part of the knowledge of, the cosmology, the spiritual systems from which this originated, take that for already established, right? So for us, it may be a little bit more of a stretch, but especially your mothers, who knows what's going on, especially if we're talking about difficult relationships and traumatizing stuff like I just wrote about a lot, actually extensively, in the new book. So this idea of mothers and stuff, but just try to understand the principle of it. You know, you know, we've all been around the block with each other infinite times if you understand this from a karmic position. But if that's too much of a reach, you can just imagine that that person is your mother. It's a real simple way to do it. I mean, okay, if you need to substitute your mother for someone else that's loving and, and so forth, however you can do that. If you don't have anyone, imagine someone or a feeling or a color. No excuses. Find a way to do this. Okay. So we're talking about the Bodhisattva commitment in order to liberate limitless sentient beings. Only don't let that slip by too fast. I mean, these are sort of pith, and we already have this. By the time we got to this point in the conversation, we already have this understanding that um, sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them all. This is the. So we're not going to dive deep into that, but what we're going to talk about is this giving rise to bodhicitta and a method for it. Okay. In fact, what Venerable Robina said is, quote, "There's a saying in Buddhism that a bird needs two wings, compassion and wisdom. Working on ourselves, healing our own fractured sense of self is the work of wisdom, but simultaneously it opens us to others. We realize we're all in the same boat." Through the lens of addiction, Darren Littlejohn shows us how compassion is both a result of self-healing, but also a method. So the method for our madness is the practice of Chod. You can explore that, C-H-O-D. I just sang the first verse at the beginning, but then I read to you the line-by-line translation. And the subject of today's podcast, practicing fearlessly. So the declaration, I, the yogin, practicing fearlessly to realize, etc., and the method, and so forth. This is a declaration of our intention, of our seriousness. Because, we're talking about wisdom and compassion, and there are methods to unlock things within ourselves. Take note of something. The average person doesn't think about these things. And, if you're a mystic, a yogi, on the spiritual path, spiritual practitioner, Buddhist in recovery, shaman, you think of this is kind of all we think about. So we want to look within for the wisdom. And I don't know, if you're anything like me, looking within can be scary. I think I drank a lot of booze and did a lot of drugs for quite some time to avoid that. So the process of introspection is a requirement for healing. It's a requirement for recovery. It's a requirement for the spiritual journey. You get nowhere without it. So we have to be fearless if we're going to get somewhere. If it were easy to get through the barrier, of our understanding and our wisdom and our knowledge, then we would just kind of step across that line. But we kind of, we have to dig and we have to chisel. We have to wait a while and let stuff bubble up and then try to chip away some more. It's a life process, right? But we need to be fearless, and that means show up, asses in seats, be there. Showing up is, 99% of it. So if you don't feel like doing your practice, if you don't feel like going to your meeting, if you don't feel like working on your bills or, doing something that you need to do for self-care, if you don't feel like pausing to give yourself self-compassion, anything like this, so we want to have that do it like no matter what, back in the day, when I got sober in the 80s, there was this guy named Woody. I think he's still on Facebook, but all I ever get from him is like casino messages or something. So I don't know what happens to people, but Woody used to say this thing, and it was just carved into my brain. He used to say, "We don't take nothing, no matter what." So, this is just staying sober for a day, right? But when we talk about to approach the practice of Chod or any practice, we make the declaration, I'm serious about this. If you're going to make a prayer, you got to hey, man, tap, tap, tap. I'm not going to just go bug the God or the wisdom source. Hey, man, you kind of got to go, up to the door of the temple and have your hat in your hand and be humble and gracious and open and fearless, and you got to just kind of have nothing to lose. The attitude you had when you were about to shoot up or spend the rent on crack or whatever the addiction was, whatever you did, what you did. Some people, lost a car. Some people lost a yacht, but what's required to, you just kind of reverse engineer or repurpose that skill of being relentlessly hyper focused and very dedicated, very committed. So this is how we begin. And that's where we have to be in relation to our Bodhisattva path, because the beginning of the path is one thing, but after you're on it for a while, it becomes a kind of difficult road. You open yourself up to compassion, you feel your empathy arising. You have to work through issues of, am I codependent? Am I doing this for me? Am I trying to micromanage? What are all those psychological issues around helping beings? Am I doing it so I can think of myself a certain way? And, of course we all are until we're not, right? So the commitment and the relative aspect of bodhicitta is what we are dealing with in relation to others. Excuse me. So the supreme aspect of bodhicitta is the result. It's the result, it is the fruit, it is the manifestation, complete and total liberation, Buddhahood. So this is the path. I know that I've got to give it away to keep it. Does that sound familiar? That's a basic principle of 12-step recovery. Surrender, abandon yourself completely. Practice fearlessly. Be willing to go to any length to help beings. If you've ever been obsessed in a relationship and you sat there thinking about, I used to just be weird and I had to think about ways to write poems and send a gift or, stupid things to try to convince the person of what they couldn't possibly be convinced of, because if they were convinced of it, they'd be there. But you're an addict, you're sick, you're attached, you're trying to strategize brilliant mastermind ways of getting what you want, whatever it is. The more desperate the need, the more desperate our methods. But this method of looking within for wisdom is the sign of a mystic and a practitioner. Own that. You could put your hand on your heart right now and say, I'm a mystic. I'm a bodhisattva. I'm a practitioner. I'm in recovery. I'm interested in aspiring to the level of compassion of a Buddha, and I'm willing to start right now, right here, where I'm at. Even if I'm afraid, it's a no matter what kind of deal, because I do understand that the fruits of my karma will manifest. So if I want to get into freedom, liberation, and so forth, got to put in the work, people. Got to put in the time. There's nothing that we don't put in. There can be nothing left in the expression of our generosity. So, as it was said in our course this morning that I take daily, the practice of Chod is offering our entire body down to the last fingernail, tip of your nose, everything, cook it up, boil it up, and offer it to the guests. Offer it to all the enlightened beings, but all your worst enemies, and actually really feel them coming and munching and chomping. And we're talking about let go absolutely. And if you really want to know how to let go absolutely, like it says in AA, look to the Chod, because there's nothing after that. Once you give up the body, you've given up your attachment. So I got a female narrator for this book, Elena, and the Compassionate Recovery, Mindful Healing for Trauma and Addictions audiobook is now available on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon Music. But I'm going to give you a free sample right now from a section, just a couple minutes worth. And after that, I'm going to tell you how to get a copy of this audiobook for free.
Chapter 6: The Window of Tolerance. Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind, always. Robin Williams. Our nervous system needs to be calm in order to reboot our brain circuits after living with the effects of toxic stress. But our brains and bodies are designed to seek, not to be still. We must move forward to get our basic needs met. Food doesn't drop out of the sky. If we can't relax when we're distressed and don't have a way to regulate, we're at the mercy of the triggering situation. We must survive it, and we eventually return to baseline. But if there's no way to be at baseline before an allostatic meltdown, we can expect instability and dysregulation. If you have an ACE score, think about yourself trying to do well in school after extreme abuse or neglect at home. Did you learn to be calm when distressed? Did you react to the overload by getting addicted to drugs or cutting school in an unwitting effort to manage a system impaired by toxic stress? Kids like us grow up to have a very narrow window of tolerance. The norm was to get triggered and spiral into highs and lows that made everything worse. And all of it would have a long-term impact on our quality of life. We can expand our window of tolerance and learn to regulate, no matter what our ACE score is or how far we traveled into the attachment addiction spectrum. We can and must rewrite our mental scripts into new narratives based on principles and practices of compassion.
I don't know about you, but it's really interesting to hear a female voice reading my words, because it disconnects from me thinking it's my words. So, and I like what I hear. So it's really nice, and I'm super proud of this. And it was really hard to get they actually didn't, even though I asked them on the 10-year anniversary edition with the publisher to do an audiobook, that it never happened. So I own this copy of this title, so I can do it myself. So I'm going to give away free Audible copies here. I'm going to give away 4. I'll probably do more than that. I have some codes to use, but the first one is for July 15th. If you send me a picture of yourself holding a hard copy of Compassionate Recovery that you bought, then we can also put that on social media with your name or not. You could just do your hand in the book if you want to do that. But it's more fun if you have your face in the book and hi, I got this, and then you're the winner. I'll put that on social media. But you can also just skip that part. You still get the freebie. I just want you could also send a screenshot of your purchase receipt. Like if you ordered it from Amazon and it said it's going to be 2 weeks, you want to make the July 15th deadline, send me a screenshot of that purchase, and I will also consider that. This one is first come, first serve. So whoever gets it to the following email address, info@compassionaterecovery.us, put in the subject free audiobook or something to tell me, and I'll take a look at that. And the first person is going to get a code, and you're going to download it. The second I get it in my email, you're going to get a code, and you can download the Audible. Okay? Okay, for the August 15th one, a month later, I want to kind of stretch these out a little bit. You're gonna have time to get the book, so the purchase receipt won't cut it. So you're gonna have to take a picture of either you holding the book or the book in your hand or something that you've obtained. Okay, and so I'm gonna give three of those away for August 15th. So it's not first come, first serve. It's, well, let's say the first three. Okay, how's that sound? Pretty cool. Other than that, the pops and clicks should be gone from the podcast. I'm working on up-leveling the quality, and I'm personally working on another title, follow-up to Compassionate Recovery, which is the Compassionate Recovery series of follow-up guides. And I don't want to talk about that one quite yet, but it is in the works. I think I'm going to talk a little bit about my writing process. People do want to know about that kind of thing. Maybe next time we'll do that. You can help out if you want to ask for Compassionate Recovery at a bookstore. 12-Step Buddhist, let them know, you know me, and it would be great to have the book on the shelf. They can order it through Ingram. They can order them directly from me. Any bookstore can get volume discounts. If you want to donate a book, go to compassionaterecovery.us, click on the Books for Addicts page, and it'll show you how to do that. Thank you so much for being a listener. The podcast is actually doing better than ever before in its history and getting very good numbers in terms of the amount of people that are listening. And thank you so much for that. Please do feel free to share it on your social media. Peace out and namaste.